Alright, so it's time for a cup of sodium carbonate. Here I've got my tank set up with my battery charger. Battery charger sitting here, plugged in, ready to roll. I've got it on the 6 volt, 6 amp setting. I could put it to the 12 volt 2 amp or the 12 volt 6 amp. I don't know if it makes any difference. The negative is attached to a ground, which is the not the rusted, but you know, it is a part of the tank with no paint. I just sanded that off on both sides. I also leveled the tank, which is kind of important. So level the tank in both directions so that when you fill it up, the water will come up to the nice level area. And all you need now is and there you go. So that's the sodium carbonate mixture all the way to the top here. No leaks underneath, there's no water coming out, so my makeshift gasket seal is working just fine. So now we need to hook up the anode, making sure your electricity is switched off right now. So I'm going to drop that down in here, in the middle, making sure it's not touching the side of the tank, which it's not. There you go, like so. And now connecting up my positive to the side here, making sure there's a good connection. Making sure that it's insulated on the side of the tank so that it's not touching anything. Whether you come from the top, you'd need something to hold it firmly, a piece of wood or something, or use the insulating sides of the bracket. So I've got negative on the metal side of the tank, positive on the anode, calcium carbonate solution in the tank, and now all we do is switch it on. So I'm going to put it on the low setting, the 6 volt actually the 12 volt 2 amp setting, so just 2 amps of power to begin with, and see how that does. And here we go. Power is coming on. Let's hope it doesn't go bang. Wow. Oh my goodness, look at that. Immediate reaction. It is bubbling away furiously. So there you go. Electrolysis at work. That's extraordinary. I mean, I've seen it on the YouTube videos. This is the first time doing it myself. Now you can see it's giving off some gases, which is why you want to do this in a ventilated area. I'm choosing to do it outside. I don't want to be around this while it's working. So we're going to leave that to do its thing. And fingers crossed, all the hard work will be done by the chemical reaction. Very exciting. So let's see how it's doing. It's been bubbling away for a couple of hours now. The reaction's definitely slowed down. It's not giving off as nearly as much gas, and the bubbles seem to be a lot slower. the gas tank itself is still, actually it's pretty hot. So I know there's a chemical reaction going on, so that probably gives off some heat. I did use hot water when it went in, but that was a couple of hours ago, so there's no way this would still be hot. It would be warm, and that's a good temperature. That's probably 90. Alright, so 4 hours later, I pulled out the nail that I was using as an anode because nothing was really happening. It was very energetic to begin with, and then it all kind of fell flat. So I am not quite sure why this iron nail was not doing its job as an anode. Something to do with the constitution of the steel that was used, or the iron, I don't know. But in all the YouTube videos, everybody seems to use an Allen key. So I went to my trusty toolbox, and I've got a nice big box of cheap and cheerful Chinese Allen keys from various IKEA projects and motorcycle auxiliary lighting projects, you name it. I end up with an extra Allen key, so I throw these in a box, and I've got a bunch of them. So I took one of these and dropped it in right there. So as you can see, it is it's being a lot more energetic. The electrolysis reaction seems to be bubbling away furiously. So maybe it's just something, it needs a soft metal, I don't know. Alrighty, so I'm going to have to take off the bottom to give it a flush through and a rinse. That's obviously the dirty water. I didn't have a net or anything to catch all the rust. If I can find a net, maybe I'll pour it through a net and see how much came off. But now what I need to do is actually undo this seal here so that I can properly get a hose in here and rinse it out. So I'm going to do that next. So the electrolysis has really worked. It's actually cleaned it extremely well for a couple of days, fizzing and bubbling away. I've got the Pour 15 kit, so I'm going to use the heavy duty degreaser and gunk remover and rinse it through with that as well. But all the heavy lifting's been done, so I can testify that electrolysis system works really, really well. So yeah, time to hose this out and then use the Pour 15 kit to clean it out even more thoroughly, and then metal prep it and then seal it. Alright, so this is my Pour 15 motorcycle fuel tank repair kit. Amazon, $65, something like that. Comes with everything you need, except because the electrolysis did such a good job, I'm not going to be using this, which is designed to take off all of the rust. But it's a multiple day wait and let it dissolve process. So I'll save this for another job. This is the metal prep, which can go into this tank right now. Tank doesn't have to be 100% dry. it says in the instructions. You just gotta coat all the metal and let it sit there for 20 minutes and let it be wet. So I've got a choice. I've either got to and what's this? This is the actual fuel tank sealer, the liquid. I've got to either put the seal back on here and then fill it up and slosh it around from the neck, or seal up the neck with the gas tank cap or some other way and then slosh it around from here. So I know this seals well, so I'm just going to redo what I already did and do a thin gasket, instant gasket, and reuse my homemade plastic seal and just go from the neck. Basically, it seemed to work well. You can't have both ends open, so I'll just do what I did before and see how that turns out. Clean and shiny. It's still got the brown rust staining, but now it's got to be completely bone dry. So this has to be air dried, sat in the sun, and we're going to leave this out to dry, and hopefully everything will evaporate and dry out. I'm going to give it a wipe down first with some paper towel and cloth in there and get it as dry as I can, and then just leave it out in the sun and let it completely dry before we put the Pour 15 in. Alright, so back outside to the R6 fuel tank that's been sitting in the sun. So it's been thoroughly rinsed with water after I put the Pour 15 metal treatment in, and now this tank has to become bone dry. So either leave it in the hot sun for as long as you can possibly bear until it's bone dry. I have no idea how long that would take, but your other option is to use either a hairdryer or a heat gun. And I've got a heat gun. You can switch it to hot or cold or just the fan to circulate air. I'm going to put it on heat and just leave it to blow some hot air into here. Okay, so the tank is absolutely bone dry. I ran my heat gun, this bad boy, which actually creates a massive amount of heat, into the tank, and it got so hot I left it on the blanket melted and melted onto the top of the tank here. So I've got fluffy melted blanket on the surface of my tank. Doesn't really bother me because the whole tank's going to get sanded and primered and resprayed, so not the end of the world there. But if you do have a tank that you're going to be leaving the finish, then don't put it on a blanket and use a heat gun, because it's just going to melt. So here's the fuel tank sealer. It's a little 8 fluid ounces or a half a pint that comes with the kit. This needs to be thoroughly stirred, poured in, swished around, the excess poured back out, and then you just get rid of it. You can't reuse it. Some people have put it back in the jar and put the lid on, and other people have put the lid on and the whole thing's exploded. So it says just pour it back in the jar, leave the lid off, let it harden, and then dispose of it. So you can see that's just iPhone video of how much is left in the tank of the Pour 15 liquid as you slosh it around inside the tank. And the whole objective here is to just try and coat everything on the inside of the tank needs to be coated with this stuff. So somehow I need to get this out, and there's no easy way of getting it out except for using a sponge or shaking it over newspaper. That will probably do it. But there you go. That's the Pour 15 inside the tank being sloshed around. So after squeezing out what was left in the bottom of the tank, this is half a jar of pour that's left over. So if you're going to use this on an R6 tank, you only need half of this, and then you won't have to take out the rest. You can just swirl it around and be done with it. That would be my advice. It's been swirled around. I've got out the excess. I'm going to do one last swirl. Anything left, it's just going to... There's a little tiny bit of movement of the liquid left in there. I'm just going to keep moving this around. There's a tiny bit left until it's all stuck to the sides. And then leave it for 48 hours to dry. So that's pretty much it for the Pour 15. I will get back to you with some pictures of what it looks like on the inside after 4 days of this thing drying. Alrighty, so yes, the neck has been coated. I think I might get a little brush and just run some Pour 15 around this area here and clean this up. Alright, so there you go. That's the Pour 15 on the inside of the gas valve around this area. This is all going to get sanded and repainted anyway, so this was the part that was sitting in the gas tank, and as you can see, it's almost eaten away completely. You can see this is just a rubber spacer to hold it away from the tank, but it definitely served its purpose. Throughout the 2 days of having it switched on and connected, I tried an Allen key to see if that would work well, and as you can see, it did. It collected a lot of rust. So the Allen key works well, cheap Chinese Allen key. And then another nail here, a fresh nail, which also did the same job. So I don't think it really matters what you use, it's just got to be iron. There you go, one very rusty used anode.